Please join me in welcoming a truly great leader to us today to address us, Dr. Mohamed Lachemi.
Thank you very much, Brian. Thank you very much, Ryan. I just want to start by saying that in just a few years, Ryerson has made the Economic Club one of the most influential places in Canada. And I can tell you at Ryerson, we are very proud of your achievements. If I were to ask each of you for a single word that defines our times, what would it be? For me, the word is disruption. Has there ever been a more disruptive age? Digital disruption has turned traditional business models upside down. From how we shop and take taxis, to how we listen to music and travel. But we are not just talking about technology. Political upheaval and economic uncertainty are disrupting lives around the world, from Asia to Africa, and from the Middle East to Middle America. And we are also talking about the workplace. Thanks to digital disruption, some 42% of jobs will be at high risk of automation within the next decade, which means that an education will be more important than ever. You might expect a university president to make such a statement. But my second declaration might surprise you. The education in this country is good, sometimes very good, but it's not sufficient. In the world that awaits them, Canadian students need more than knowledge. They need a mix of knowledge and 21st century skills. That is flexibility, adaptability, creativity, and problem solving. As employers, you know this to be true. You also know that many Canadian youth have what Ryerson Brookfield Institute calls an experience mismatch. Despite impressive educational achievements, they do not have the real-world experience required to integrate the workforce. This afternoon, we'll explore why the right response to disruption is critically important to all of us, and what a new model of education looks like. But first, I want to share my experience, my personal experience with disruption. I was born in Algeria, just as the French occupation of our nation came to an end. As always, when a nation is in transition, civil and political turmoil continued for many, many years. Our family lived in a small village where school ended with grade 6. Recognizing my educational potential, my parents moved our family to a larger town nearby. When I look back, it's remarkable to me that my parents had such foresight. Of course, they would not have talked about disruption per se, but they knew that an education would prepare me for the modern world and change our family's life. Now here we are in 2017, and I have the great privilege of leading this particular university at this particular time. How exactly is Ryerson University responding to disruption? What is our roadmap for the future? And what does our work mean to you? 3 powerful ideas guide Ryerson's 21st century approach. Disruption ignores boundaries. Disruption is global. And disruption is changing the way students learn. Let's take these ideas one at a time. Number 1, at Ryerson, we live by this principle: disruption ignores boundaries. As everyone in this room struggles with disruption, we are asking ourselves, how we will cope and how we will thrive and prosper. My first answer to these questions is that we must ignore arbitrary, outdated barriers between us. In a word, we must become partners. Here is one example of why partnerships are essential. All of Ryerson's programs, and this is very unique in the system, all of Ryerson's programs have advisory boards where leaders like you share the insights we need to create programs for emerging careers. In fact, our advisory boards have never been more important because the workplace is changing at lightning speed. The World Economic Forum recently published a list of hot careers that did not exist 10 years ago, including cloud computing specialists and sustainability managers. Ryerson's new master program is a good example. Our data science and analytics students work with partners, including IBM, SICKET, and the Toronto Stock Exchange, and learn how analytics can improve decision-making across an organization value chain. These students get the kind of real-world experience that employers like you are looking for. As you can imagine, creating programs for emerging careers is a never-ending process, and the pace of change will only accelerate. The World Economic Forum estimates that 65% of the next generation will be doing work that we cannot yet imagine. Now more than ever, Ryerson's advisory boards need you. So there is a situation where I think Ryerson is ahead of the curve, and people are noticing. For each undergraduate space at Ryerson, 9 people apply, the highest ratio of applications to available spaces in all of Ontario. Ambitious high achievers are enrolling at Ryerson, and when they arrive on our campus, exceptional partnership opportunities await. Our engineering and medical physics undergrads might choose to work with IBEST, the Institute for Biomedical Engineering and Science Technology, or the Biomedical Zone, both joint ventures with St. Mike's Hospital to develop medical technologies. Recently, St. Mike's Surgeon-in-Chief, Dr. Ori Rostin, and Ori is with us today. Welcome, Ori. He told me he never imagined he would someday invite engineering students to join him in the operating room. These partnerships have shown all of us that testing medical technologies in clinical settings dramatically improves their effectiveness. And here is another Ryerson partnership that may be more familiar to you, because a number of your organizations have already come on board. I'm talking about 111, North America's largest scale-up innovation hub. Ryerson is the founding academic partner of 111, along with Omes Ventures and the the Ontario Centers of Excellence. Why did we take this calculated risk? Because Toronto and Ontario were already world leaders in incubators. But global agencies like the World Economic Forum have confirmed that startups do very little to boost economies unless they grow. If this city and this province want to be ahead of the curve, we need to take innovative ventures to scale. And 111 is doing precisely this. After partnerships, the second idea that guides us is disruption is global. If we are to succeed in the face of disruption, we must think and act globally. Tariq Fancy gets the global imperative loud and clear. When Tariq lost his best friend to cancer, he quit Wall Street and came to Ryerson's DMZ to launch a world-changing venture, the Rumi Initiative. Rumi was designed to help young people who can't go to school for one reason or another, including refugees, the world's poor, and in many, many countries, the girls. Today, Rumi makes low-cost tablets loaded with educational materials. And I brought a sample of the Rumi tablet with me. I can tell you, based on my experience, somebody who was born in a very small little village in Africa, this tool can change lives and open doors. And Rumi makes the tablets available to children in 20 countries, including Canada. Why Canada? Just 2 weeks ago, Tarek and I met with some of the leaders of this country's First Nations. We were discussing the rollout of Rumi tablets across this country, featuring materials in 50 indigenous languages. This number, 50, is an impressive accomplishment. And it's also a contribution of a different sort. Rumi is helping preserve indigenous cultures. Given that disruption requires us to think and act globally, what is the best way to get a good grasp of what is going on in other countries? Invite the world into our campus. And I don't just mean international students. A significant number of Ryerson students are from first-generation families. Across the university, our students come from 120 countries and speak more than 80 languages. Our remarkable diverse student body, mirrored by our faculty and staff, is no accident. Ryerson has long been a leader in diversity. For instance, Ryerson was the first university in Canada to name a vice president exclusively dedicated to equity and community inclusion. And Ryerson students and staff, in collaboration with their peers at the University of Toronto, York University, and OCADU, helped over 400 Syrian refugees make a new start in this country. Inviting the world into the Ryerson campus has deepened our understanding of other cultures and other markets. And this enhanced understanding is invaluable. Because disruption will continue, and globalization will too, despite all the recent election results in some countries. As Ryerson shows, Ryerson is committed to helping young people become vibrant and engaged citizens ready to make meaningful contributions to the global economy. Which brings me to number 3. Disruption is changing how students learn. Ryerson has high academic standards and conducts leading-edge research. This is our unwavering mission. At the same time, we are committed to innovation in all aspects of our work. Not long ago, Ryerson moved swiftly to become the global leader in a revolutionary approach known as zone learning. You may be familiar with Ryerson's DMZ, the leading university-based business incubator for tech startups in North America. What exactly are learning zones, and how are they different? Learning zones are interdisciplinary. Students and faculty from different departments work together. Zones are driven by students who often see disruption's potential sooner and have fresh ideas about how to respond. And zones depend on partnerships with corporations, government, and civil society. Ryerson began with the DMZ, and 7 years later, we have zones across the university. We are working in the fastest growing and most disruptive sectors, such as clean energy and media, plus one that is ripe for disruption, the legal system. And I look at table number 13, which is full of judges and lawyers, and I think they all agree with me. So Ryerson pioneered the zone learning model, and we now export it worldwide, including in India, a partnership with the Bombay Stock Exchange. In the US, a DMZ presence in New York City. In Calgary, an accelerator program in partnership with GE. And in Brampton, a brand new innovation hub. One of the fastest growing and most diverse communities in Canada, Brampton is ideally located halfway between Toronto and Waterloo. The hub will help strengthen the regional innovation corridor that connects our cities. The hub is part of an emerging partnership between Ryerson, the city of Brampton, and Sheridan College. This will be the first time Ryerson has established a post-secondary presence outside of downtown Toronto. And I'm pleased to welcome the Mayor of Brampton, Linda Jeffrey, with us today. How then to sum up zones? Ryerson has responded to disruption with a disruption of our own. And the world is beating a path to our door because zones are a model that works. But Ryerson is more than zones. Where else we are ahead of the curve? 2 years ago, the Silicon Valley entrepreneur Elon Musk announced that his company, SpaceX, would sponsor a series of competitions to help develop the Hyperloop. As you know, Hyperloop is a transportation system that will use pods and frictionless tubes to transport people. And if that is not astonishing enough, Musk and his partners believe this will happen at close to the speed of sound. But how will Hyperloop pod carry people safely? For instance, how will it slow down? One of our graduate students thought he had the answer. So we helped him create the Ryerson International Hyperloop team. Let's take a look at Graham Klim and his team at work.
It's important to put it into perspective. Like, this is the SpaceX Hyperloop competition, but the Hyperloop is being developed by companies outside of the SpaceX competition. Even though Elon Musk came up with this idea in 2013 and published this white paper, it was never his intention to do it himself. What it's done is actually, it's given more global attention. So now a lot more people know what the Hyperloop is because of this competition. He's done a lot, but he's also come up with this idea about the Hyperloop that could revolutionize the way we live our lives. In our early meetings with the initial team, we were talking about how we would go forward in the competition. And eventually we started converging on, most of us have experience in aircraft landing gear, why don't we make a deployable wheel system using our aircraft landing gear knowledge? They held the first part of the competition, which was a design weekend in Texas. We had no expectation to win anything. I never even told my parents until about 3 or 4 weeks before flying to Texas. I was always thinking our design's not good enough. We don't have what it takes. We got all these teams from MIT, Delft, all over the world competing in this competition. Until about the time we landed in Texas, and I thought, maybe we have a shot at this.
The Subsystem Innovation Award, and it's going to Ryerson's International Hyperloop team, Ryerson University.
Being from Ryerson, internationally, we're still making our mark. So we were very excited to say that, essentially we're part of laying the foundations for the fifth mode of transportation, and that's something that we're at this point we're enshrined in history with all these other teams for being a part of this first stage of the development. So in my undergraduate, I actually had the fortune of being an intern at Safran Landing Systems. So when the time came for testing and assembly and development, Safran was right on board. We had access to engineering expertise and resources there that helped guide us through the detailed design and analysis process. And that's really what we needed to do to be able to bring our design from a concept to something that could actually be fabricated. Ryerson was one of our original sponsors from the beginning. They wanted us to worry about the most important stuff, which is innovating and making a good product. But ultimately, we're doing this because we really believe in the cause. We really want to push humanity forward. And as you know, you've got these hundreds and hundreds of students working on these pods for no other reason but to grow as an engineer and also to benefit humanity and to work in a cause that they believe in. So I think that's pretty special, and I'm glad that we were a part of it. I think the Hyperloop's going to change the world.
I'm delighted to say that I'm delighted to say that the Ryerson Hyperloop team is with us today. Please join me in congratulating this remarkable young people and their faculty advisor, Dr. Saeed Hashimi. As you can see, the Ryerson Hyperloop project has it all. The project ignores boundaries, bringing together students from different disciplines. It is global, with students and advisors from 5 countries. And Ryerson's partners, more than 15 of Canada's leading engineering and manufacturing companies, helped make it happen. As part of a new industry that could soon employ thousands of people, the Ryerson International Hyperloop project takes this university, this city, and this country a giant step into the future. Is the Hyperloop project a sign of things to come? Can we, the people in this room, respond effectively to this age of disruption and thrive? Can we prepare young people for the future and reshape the world for the better? At Ryerson, we think the answer is clear. Looking at you this afternoon, I see many, many familiar faces. To our Ryerson's partners and our Board of Governors, executive team, faculty, staff, and students, my deepest thanks for helping us realize the possibilities inherent in disruption. To our new friends, I say this: if you have problems to solve, and if you are open to new ideas and innovative approaches, come partner with Ryerson University. Together, we'll create the future. Thank you very much.
Open for questions. So if you have a question for the president, if you just raise your hand, and Holly or myself will come over with the microphone.
Hi. My name is Mohsen Murtada with Coal Engineering. I have a quick question regarding the government funding for research. How fast do you see it adapting to the new model of education and what you're pioneering at Ryerson?
Thank you very much for your question. And actually, our Vice President, Research and Innovation is sitting at your table. So the discussion about research can, of course, take place during the lunch. As I mentioned, research is extremely important for us. And I would say that the project is part of actually also research, because Graham was doing his master's degree, and this is part of applications for his research thesis. So we try to have a parallel between the research activities and also what is going on in zones. But the idea of zones also is to give opportunities for students to think out of the box, to be innovators from day one they start the university. We define ourselves as an innovation university, and I would like to borrow a definition of innovation from our Chancellor, Chancellor Bloomberg. His definition of innovation: you must always challenge the status quo. I think we have to give that ability to students from day one they join Ryerson University, to always challenge the status quo. And I think in this way we can force them really to push boundaries. And this is why we want people really to push those boundaries and come up with new ideas. So research, zone, innovation, all those aspects are aligned together. And the idea is to improve things that we do, improve the quality of life of people, and that's our contribution to society.
Hi, Mohammed. My name is Chris. I graduated from Urban Regional Planning at Ryerson, and I grew up in Brampton. And in addition to, I saw that Ryerson has expanded the DMZ model to New York City, which was really exciting to see. Ryerson is also physically expanding into Brampton. I was just wondering if you could comment on the excitement of Brampton having Ryerson in its city and the excitement that students and alumni will feel for the expansion of the university.
Thank you very much for the question. I mentioned the new initiative that we have in collaboration with the City of Brampton, but also with Sheridan College. This came after a call by the provincial government to establish a university presence in Brampton and then also university presence in Milton. Why? Because both cities are experiencing huge growth of population, and the provincial government wants really to serve those students in the local communities. Brampton is the largest city in Canada without a university presence. It's a place where there's a lot of youth. The average age for the population in Brampton is one of the lowest in Canada. I think Mary's here, she may correct me, but I think it's about 34. That's very low compared to the rest of the country. So we saw that potential, and we wanted really to be part of that action. Your question was also about the excitement. I can tell you that the level of excitement, and we have a lot of friends from Brampton today, huge level of excitement, because people would like to have that university presence, but we want also to bring to those partners some new ideas. And what I mentioned about the Innovation Hub, we want to have a global center in Brampton focusing on areas that are needed by society, by our partners, by the industry. And we think that there is a huge shortage of talent in areas like cybersecurity, big data, data analytics, business analytics. Those are the areas where we want to push the bar very high in Brampton, and I think we have an excellent opportunity. The other thing, as I mentioned, Brampton is really midway between Toronto and Waterloo. Everybody's talking about the corridor of innovation. Brampton, if you look at the exact location, and we are trying to be really next to the GO station, that is exactly mid-distance between Toronto and Waterloo when you take a train here. So we see a lot of opportunities, but also we see a willingness, a bold vision by the mayor and her team, and a huge support by all stakeholders. So I think the future will be bright in Brampton.
President, my name is Gregory Regis. I'm one of the judges that you pointed to. But I'm also a very proud graduate of Ryerson. Many years ago in 1977, I graduated in journalism. I still say to people when I speak about my education that the 3 years I spent as an undergraduate at Ryerson, I still think are 3 of the best years of my life. So I have a very great passion for Ryerson, and I'm very proud to be involved in some way in trying to move the Ryerson agenda forward, which I totally believe in. But you talked about business and technology and so on. Does Ryerson have any plans, disruptive plans, in the area of law and the legal community and so on?
Thank you very much, Judge. I made it clear to my team during the preparation of the speech that I want to be very low-key in terms of talking about the initiative for a law school at Ryerson. But given that you asked the question, I have to answer. Yes, we have a plan. We have a plan, and we have a team, and we have a wonderful team of faculty and a lot of friends from the legal community that are with us working on the idea of establishing a law school. The idea is not to establish a law school that will be similar to what other law schools are doing, and they do a fantastic job. The idea is really to use this concept of innovation, thinking out of the box, and bring some new ideas to the legal profession. The focus for this idea of a law school at Ryerson will be on the use of technology, use of innovation, but also make the law as a profession accessible to people. I think that's very important. If we can use technology, I think there is a way for us to make sure that we can get people to access the legal system, because we know that there's a large proportion of the population that have unfortunately no access to the legal profession. The third element that is very important, and we are very proud, is the aspect of diversity. I think the legal profession also has, it's one of those professions where in terms of diversity, we will not necessarily see a good representation of the diversity of the population in Ontario, and we like to bring that aspect because, as I mentioned, we are a very diverse community at Ryerson, and we want to make sure that will be part also of the law initiative that we have. We are not launching a law school that will necessarily take students from other law schools. I want to be very clear here. We have hundreds, if not thousands, of Ontario students that are going abroad for their law degrees in the UK, the US, Australia. Why parents are paying very high tuition fees for their kids to go to the UK, for example? I was just looking at some statistics. One single university in the UK, Leicester University, has almost 400 Canadian students doing their law degree there. So the idea also, if they're going elsewhere because they want to have a different experience, we want to provide them that different experience here. And I think this will be a good contribution to society. Thanks, Jeff.
Hi, my question's about Hyperloop, and countries around the world are saying that this technology can transform their transportation system. So I'm just wondering what Ryerson will be doing in the future to develop and facilitate the progress of this technology, and if Ryerson has any relationships with companies developing this technology like Hyperloop One or Transpod, or what's going to happen in the future.
This is, in my opinion, and the team is here, Graham can elaborate on this. Unfortunately, Graham has been, because when we talk about what we do for our country and our province, I think the most important element for us is to attract talent and retain talent here in the province. Because if we want really to progress, that's what we want to do. And Ryerson, our idea is to develop talent that will really advance sectors like the Hyperloop, for example. And I know that Graham has been attracted to France. He's working in France these days. You know that in terms of this area is also area of international competition. So we want to make sure also to give a platform for our talented people to stay here and work also in collaboration with companies. The project has been a big success because of the collaboration with companies. And I mentioned in my speech that the project had 15 Canadian companies involved in it. So the idea is for us to give also opportunities for students to work directly, get that experience, and be ready for the next step. So the discussion about what's next, it's taking place. I don't necessarily have a clear answer because this will depend on also the team. But our idea at Ryerson is to make sure that we provide the team with all the necessary support to be successful and move them to the next level.
And this is the final question.
Okay.
Hi, thank you. That was a great talk. I really enjoyed it. I actually have two questions, so I'm going to cheat a little bit. The first is about the Amazon bid, and I'm just curious, knowing that Ryerson is a city and region builder, as you referred to, and we all embrace that concept. I'm just curious if you have any thoughts about how Ryerson will get prominence on the ticket, on the bid, and how it will partner with other educational institutions, which will obviously feature on the bid, but then also how will it distinguish itself? And then the second question, and not to put a damper on things, but Ryerson is really on a roll and has been for probably about a decade. So I'm just curious, are there certain things that sort of keep you up at night? What are some of the big challenges that we face going forward? I'm sure there are many, but maybe one or two.
Thank you very much, Linda. And Linda is actually, I mentioned in my speech, she's the director of our biomedical zone, the project that we have in collaboration with St. Mike's Hospital. I think the most important thing for bid like the Amazon bid, and I know that we have been in discussion with the city of Brampton about making sure that this region, I think the entire region, we're not talking about one single municipality, has to be really to be competitive. I think the most important element when you try to attract those companies here, the first question is talent. Do you have enough talent? And part of what we are trying to do at Brampton is to make sure that we focus on areas where we prepare talent for careers, for people to be really contributors, but those also the people who can bring us here investments. So that's the most important element. And talking about talent, one of the examples, and Art Slasky, the VP Research at St. Mike's Hospital, we attracted a talented person to lead our biomedical zone. Linda has 3 credentials. The first one is from, I'm not sure about the order, the first one is from Harvard, and she's a medical doctor, from Yale, and she went after that to Stanford to get her MBA in innovation. So for us, it's talent, talent, talent. Your question about what are the priorities, things that keep me awake during the night, I think the most important thing, because I mentioned the huge demand that we have at Ryerson, my biggest challenge and the biggest challenge that we have at our executive team and our board is space. We need more space. And being in downtown Toronto is a big, big challenge. And I think moving some of the activities in Brampton will really release some of that pressure. Thank you.